All right, good evening once again. We can start and others will join in as we go. So today's topic, we'll be looking at governance and corruption, and our facilitator is Mr. Umar Yakubu. Here's a brief profile before he takes the stage. Umar Yakubu specializes in the area of data science, criminal justice system, financial crimes, and geoeconomics. At the national level, he has been a member of the National Risk Assessment Secretariat on Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing, and also one of 8 members that developed the National Anti-Corruption Strategy to be implemented by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation from 2017 to 2021. He has been involved in policy making related to the legal and institutional framework of anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism in Nigeria by serving on the Presidential Committee on Financial Action Task Force. He also worked on the technical committee that addressed FAT's strategic deficiencies, which got Nigeria delisted as a country of high risk by FAT in 2013. His core areas of expertise are policy formulation around corporate governance, criminal justice, anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism, anti-corruption, counter-fraud, and national security. He has obtained degrees and certificates from Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, Nasarawa State University, University of Chester, University of Leicester, and the University of Portsmouth in the UK, University of Leiden in the Netherlands, and SDG Academy and Harvard Business School in the US. He's currently on a PhD program on defense and security at the Nigerian Defense Academy. He's a member of the Nigerian Economic Society, the Nigerian Institute of Management, Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and Center for Counter-Fraud Studies, UK. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Counter-Fraud Center and the Executive Director of a civil society organization, the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Integrity Watch. With emojis in the chat box, can we give a warm welcome with a show of hands and tell him welcome to our facilitator for today? You can see from the profile that, he's a man with a lot of experience, and we are privileged to be drinking from his wealth of knowledge this evening. Welcome, sir. But before the class kicks off, before you take the stage, today is your birthday. Happy birthday, sir. So I'll be giving the ED the opportunity and, few minutes to just wish you happy birthday on behalf of the college.
Good day. It's a pleasure to address the 8th cohort. Welcome back from your Salah break. I'm sure you all had fun. I hope you had a little bit of ram meat to eat. Anyway, Umar is someone who I, of course, have grown up with from days in Jos to Ahmadu Bello University, and I've watched him rise. He's an exemplary gentleman, someone who I'm very proud of. And, to have this class on his birthday, which was probably fixed without us even knowing, Umar first would like to apologize, but that does not mean that we don't want your love for him. So it's a privilege to welcome my childhood friend, a very great person, Umar Yakubu, and also how would I put it, also a former House of Rep candidate. I know that he didn't place that on his bio. So thank you very much, Umar. It's a pleasure doing this on behalf of the Electoral College and the 8th cohort. Thank you very much, Umar.
Yeah, welcome, ED, my friend and my brother, and it's only you that can pull me out to do this thing on the daily basis. Well, no problem. I'll do my best. Thank you, everyone, for wishing me a happy birthday. I'm younger than the ED, so I know age mates. I'm younger than him. Could we start the slides, or do I control them from here?
Okay, whichever you prefer, sir.
No, you could.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Oh, please, it's his birthday. Let's accord him all privileges. And Umar says he's younger than me. We will find out whether that's corruption before at the end of the class. Thank you.
So share the screen. Or permit me to share my screen.
Okay, I'm already in the process, so just give me a minute, please.
I've done it already. So can you see my screen?
Oh, okay. Yes, we can.
Okay, once more, good afternoon or good evening. And to I believe these are students of the Electoral College. I have to appreciate what the Electoral College are doing, because there's a lot of, pardon my language, ignorance on electoral matters in Nigeria. So this is something that should have been done 40 years ago. So I really commend the college for this initiative in trying to train youth and everybody as well on things that matter, because all our governance depends on our politics, and our politics depends on our electoral systems, how we select our leaders. So first, I'd like to commend them. So this is my slide. My topic today is on governance and corruption. Then next slide. I'm supposed to be controlling it. Okay. Okay. These are the contents for our program today. A brief introduction of what is governance. Then I'll try and explain in a nutshell what the dimensions of good governance entails. Then we'll delve into what is corruption and see the relationship, whether it's positive or negative, of corruption on governance or good governance. Then just briefly look at what the country has been doing in terms of legal and institutional framework in combating corruption. And we'll make some recommendations. Then we'll hear from the class in terms of conclusions on what you recommend we could do better. So in Nigeria, we don't need to overflog our problems. Our problems are well documented. Everybody knows how corrupt we are, how I'm sure now as we speak, some of you are using your generator, they're struggling to buy data. Life is actually hard in Nigeria because there's no security in whatever state you live in. You find out the level of insecurity is very high. There's no light, no water, like I said, just everything is just so difficult. And the reason is we all agree that corruption has become endemic in everywhere, in our schools, religious bodies, in our political systems, in the hospitals, everywhere you go, you see different types of corruption showcasing themselves there. So what is governance? First of all, there are different definitions, but we have to now just narrow and agree what governance should be. And I'll just simply take the definition of the United Nations, which says governance comprises of the mechanisms, processes, and institutions through which citizens and groups articulate their interests, exercise their legal rights, and meet their obligations and mediate their differences. I think this is an apt description of what governance is, and it's what the Electoral College tries to educate people on. You want to run for an elective office, you should even know why you are running there, why you want to go there. The citizens have to agree on what mechanisms they want. First of all, agree even what they want. That's if they know what they want. Now, when they know what they want, they have to think of the mechanism they use to approach to get what they want. And before you get there, you have to, of course, set up processes. And these processes will entail people and institutions to build upon so that you can achieve what you want as a country. So governance, simply put, is a government interaction through structures in place. Now, when you're talking laws and systems with the people, because in the long run, whatever you set up is going to be driven by Nigerians themselves or Nigerian citizens, with the ultimate aim of addressing common goals or interests. So an example, I want to just assume without any data, backing up by any data, that all Nigerians agree we need security. Even though now in defining security, there are different types. Is it physical security, where you can travel from Lagos to Ibadan without being afraid of being killed or kidnapped? Is it for Kaduna, Abuja Road without anybody shooting you? or is it Maiduguri axis in the northeast without fear of banditry or terrorists? Or are we talking about health security? When you go to the hospital, you are assured that the adequate equipments are there to take care of you. Or are we talking about educational security, where if you get admission into a university, in 4 years, you know you will finish, not that the ones that are also on strike for the past 4 months. Or are you talking about social security, where if you leave your job today, you decide to resign or you retire at 60, you are sure you have something to rely on for the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life. Understand what, when we say we want something, we have to break it down to the nitty-gritty to understand what we really want under that concept. So, in a nutshell, the dimensions of good governance are basically what you can see on your screen now. One, there are 4. The critical components are 4 in any democracy. We're not talking to tell you we have been struggling with having credible behavior.
Hello, sorry, sir. We can't hear you anymore. Okay, I think he just went off his network probably. Please, let's give him a few minutes to join back in. Please, let's just be patient. He's trying to join back. You're welcome, sir. Okay, I think he's around. Welcome back, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Welcome back. Hello, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Hello. Hello, sir. We can't hear you. Are you speaking? I think he's having a bit of network challenge. Let's hope he's able to sort it out. Apologies, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, sorry. The network, and I
Welcome
think
back,
it's
sir.
from my side. Yeah, so
Okay,
sorry.
okay, no problem.
Now I hope I remember where I stopped. No problem. Do you know where I stopped? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. I think this was
Okay.
where you were.
Okay. So as I was saying, maybe I'll just take one slide back. Okay, in the previous slide, I tried to explain what governance entails and how the processes should be set up for people to understand what they need. What Nigerians need may be different in some areas, with maybe what the Chinese need, what the Americans need, but generally there are common things that everybody agrees on. Everybody wants security. Everybody wants a good healthcare. Everybody wants access to education. Most people rather want all these things. So this is what determines what your governance structures should be based upon, and your laws and systems with the right people to drive the process to ensuring that you achieve your common goals and interests. So I now went on to say there are basically 4 dimensions. Now there are several dimensions, but the 4 broad ones that we can take and break down are 4. 1, at least for every democracy, you need political accountability. And the Electoral College will be the first one to tell you that you need credible elections. Because if you agree you want something as a people, the only way that thing can be delivered is when the people that can deliver on that mandate are elected. So elections must be free and fair, where the people will get to choose those that would get them to achieve their objectives. So that is the first step. Once you miss this first step about credible elections, you find that all the other things I'm going to explain to you will fall. That was just the truth. Nothing will work, hardly, because the right people have not been elected to do what they're supposed to do. Now, if we're talking about credible elections, is broad. The people should be educated. That is what the Electoral College is trying to do now. They are trying to educate people on even how to elect the right people for the right job. It's not about only popularity. I know that's what our system is based on now. The more popular you are, or the more money you have, the more likely you are going to win elections. But what the Electoral College is trying to do to you now is to sensitize you on how to be part of that process of ensuring credible elections. The second one, which is very important, and we even have a program at the end of this month, is on transparency in party financing. Now, if it's not transparent, where the money bags get to hijack the parties, you have a problem. And in third world countries, including Nigeria, most of the people that go into elections are former or existing public servants, because most of the corruption that takes place is from public sector through procurement fraud, where they get all these monies, they go and pump it into party financing, hijack the party, and hijack the people. So the third thing you have to have is a credible asset declaration, where, because most, of course, corruption comes from the public sector. Because public sector collects taxes from people, and instead of doing what they're supposed to do, they go and siphon it for elections or for whatever they want to do. And this is based on lack of proper asset declaration mechanisms, where a public servant will tell you he has assets worth 10 billion. If you ask him what he has done in his lifetime, he will tell you his inheritance, nothing tangible on ground. So that's the first component, political accountability. The second component is public sector management. Now, government raises revenue through 2 measures, either through taxes or through, like Nigeria, we sell oil from rent and we get money from the oil we sell. So that is rent. Now, from the rent we get, we collect taxes. That's the money we use for our budget, for our healthcare, for our security, our education, and everything. Now, if this mechanism is not properly managed, of course, nothing happens. You're all aware of how many billions or rather trillions have been spent in the last 5 to 10 years on security. You may agree with me, much has not been seen vis-a-vis the amount being spent. You say you have 360,000 policemen, but to see them is very difficult. So these are our finances. You hear our budget is so trillion. You can't point to a 200-kilometer road that was being built. Look at our airports. We have all concessioned them to the Chinese, but there's no money to even pay them. So all these are public sector accountability issues. There's supposed to be a public expenditure framework that citizens are supposed to monitor, but unfortunately, most citizens are either not aware or are not looking at the budget. And I can bet everybody listening to me now, if you ask him how much is the budget of his local government, he doesn't know, not to speak of state. Most people are looking at the federal aspect of the budget, and that is where we expend our energy on, and that's not good enough. The third component of under the second component is taxes. You have to have an effective system of tax collection. Why taxes is important is when people pay tax, they will feel they have a stake in governance. But when you have a high sense of entitlement, which way we feel now, you want to, everything is free, you want to go to school free, water free, everything should come free. If you see a bad road, you will feel bad. But when you pay tax and you know your tax has been collected, you want to ensure that that money is being spent on the right things. A good example of a friend of mine I see, he's a lecturer in the UK. When they take his taxes, let's assume £300 per year, you actually see down to the last penny what it was being spent for. You see £100 for education, £25 for healthcare, £5 for the elderly, everything to the last penny. So you see, the tax collection is very effective and the tax distribution is very effective as well, because you can go and check, and every taxpayer in the UK gets this document. In Nigeria, unfortunately, it's not the same because of several other issues. Our fiscal federalism issue is something that needs to be updated because everybody puts money to the center and they now share to the states. And you find that now states are not saving any money. Everybody is just blowing the money as it comes because there's just no accountability. The third component, of course, freedom of information, like in the media. This is what the media need to do. The CSOs, you have to have access to information, budget information, recruitment information, what we're spending our money on, information about our candidates, what are their histories, what did they do while they were in government before, what did they do while in the private sector, look at their lives, information to everything. Because the truth is, the more democratic or the more there's information in a democratic setting, the better the level of good governance. Nothing is done in hiding. Probably maybe only some national security issues, but everything should be in the public domain for people to scrutinize, because when you know people are going to look at what you're doing, you are likely not going to do it. Of course, and to do that, there has to be inclusiveness. Everybody has to be involved. The women, the people with disabilities, adults, children at some level, everybody should be included so that you have an effective governance monitoring system to check what everybody at the federal, state, and local government are doing. And we should check everybody, not only public officials, even the private sector, we're supposed to check. Now, another strong component of good governance, you have to have a very strong economic system where it's very competitive so that it will breed innovation, because it's innovation that solves problems. So now, once you have that sector where government should not be involved in any business at all, the work is to create that sector to ensure that people can thrive and do what 200 million now. You need to have an economic system where businesses can thrive and prosper to create more jobs for everybody. I don't know if you can hear me, so that I'll continue.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is corruption. Now, what is corruption? This is one of the most difficult things I can tell you as a practitioner in the industry. Is one of the most difficult things to explain or to define, because corruption is just anything that is done, it's just abuse of power or abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Anything you do that will be of personal benefit to you with regards to public resources is corruption. Now, not all corruption entails money. For example, you are supposed to recruit 10 people and you go and take 5 people from your village. It is corruption. It's for private gain. It's not for the public. But for the purpose of this class, I would like to read what Transparency International said. There are several definitions and they are all correct. But for the purpose of this class, corruption is the abuse of entrusted power. Entrusted here means you have been elected or selected or appointed or for whatever public reason to do something for the public, but you do it for private gain. And of course, the consequences of corruption are well documented. No people, we don't trust our government anymore. If APC tells us this, we don't believe it. PDP tells us we don't believe it. NMPP, Labour Party, anyone you call, nobody wants to even believe the government anymore because we have tried you before and you have not shown us that you are trustworthy people. And of course, that weakens democracy. And that's why you find that the highest you can get participation during an elections is 30%, because people are tired of doing it and nothing changes. So that is what the Electoral College is trying to encourage people to improve on. Participation, but it's difficult to participate when there is no trust. If you don't trust the system, you are likely not going to want to be part of it. Of course, hampers economic development. The hardest one for Nigeria is most of the corruption that takes place here, people take the money outside. I'm not advocating for corruption and you keep the money here, but people will steal the money and take it outside. So we are using the funds to develop other economies, while here we suffer. We don't have good schools, we don't have good hospitals. Everybody just has to check out. And of course, this breeds inequality, the poverty we see. We have, like in the North, I think about almost all the states have at least a poverty index of more than 80%, all the states in the North. For the South, is lower, but the poverty index is still high. People live on less than $1. In fact, it has been adjusted to $2 per day. That's 1,200. There are a lot of people that don't have 1,200 a day. That's just to take care of themselves, not speak of education or healthcare issues. So that is what corruption is. So now, what is, like I just explained now, these are the things that the impact of corruption on governance. The trust issues, because we just give a few public servants and they take all the money. For example, now, when Nigeria budgets, let's say 8 trillion naira a year, you find out 4 trillion goes to recurrent expenditure. Now, recurrent expenditure, basically, I know there are other components, but basically means government salaries, allowances, and some services of the cost. It's just the cost of running government. That is what recurrent expenditure is. They will now take only 2 trillion for capital, for roads, bridges, equipment, and every other thing that they're supposed to do, just capital. Then the 2 trillion for debt servicing. We borrow money, maybe we have borrowed money 15, 10 years ago, and now it's time to service those loans. So that is how we are running our budget. That is why development is so difficult in Nigeria. The recurrent is just too high. And that's why you hardly see anything. There's no impact because a few people are getting all the resources in the name of whatever they want to call it, and that's the end. The second thing, it definitely, of course, hinders economic growth and development. If you look at our developmental indexes, in fact, we have gone backwards in the last 5, 6, 7 years from where we are supposed to be. All of you would be proud if we could go back to, let's say, the Abacha days, 1996, 97. Dollar at that time was probably 120 naira. A bag of rice was what amount? What was the interest rate? What was the inflation rate? Single digit. Now imagine that today, the last MBS report, I think the official inflation rate is 19%. If you take us to the Abacha days, we're talking about 8-9%. We'll clap. How much was fuel at that time? Probably 14, I think 21 naira or so. So everything has ballooned. The economy has gone down because of these issues, not only corruption, even taking bad decisions is corruption anyway. Thirdly, insecurity. I don't think I need to speak much on this because everybody here is a victim of the current insecurity situation in Nigeria. You must know somebody that has either lost his life or has been abducted or has been kidnapped or something bad has happened. Just on the issue of physical insecurity. I'm not discussing health insecurity now. I'm not discussing food insecurity. I'm not discussing educational insecurity. No, just on the physical insecurity, everybody here has lost somebody or knows somebody has been kidnapped or so on. So these are just the issues. If we break down how corruption has led to the different branches of insecurity, we will probably spend the next 6 hours here. But of course, indirectly, you go to a hospital today, public hospital, you are not likely going to get anything. That's why everybody runs to the private hospital. When we're much younger, you could almost go to a lot of public hospitals who are functional, at least for the basic things. Foreigners used to come to University of Ibadan Teaching Hospital for medical tourism. This I'm talking about back in the 60s and early 70s. Well, now it's the other way around. Everybody's running to India, Dubai, and Cairo for medical tourism because there's just nothing here. That's just the truth. There's just nothing here. Of course, when you don't have a stable system due to corrupt activities, you find out foreign and direct investment will not come in. I'll give you an example here. There was a year in the 90s or early 2000s where airlines wanted to place their aviation service center where their planes, all Africans within the sub-Saharan Africa wanted to come to Nigeria to be servicing their planes. But because some people in some particular ministries were not bribed the way they wanted to be bribed, that center was not set up in Nigeria, and they went to Ethiopia, and they did it. Richard Branson came here to drive our Virgin Nigeria project. What happened? Because of the demand for bribes, demand for bribes, he had to leave. He had to leave. He said he cannot deal in such an environment. So if you know the kind of investment we lose because of people demanding for bribe, and even after you pay the bribe, you set up the system, you are going to continuously be servicing these laid-back civil servants to be giving them money for doing nothing. And that's the culture, unfortunately, we have built. So these are the issues of corruption. When you think it's just okay to say, or when you want to import things, at every checkpoint, somebody wants to collect money. Nigeria says it consumes 40 million liters of petrol per day. That is highly impossible. But what happens? The fuel goes to our border countries. Now, these things are being transported in trailers, meaning that on the road, you meet the police, you meet the customs, you meet the immigration, you meet the NDLA, and everybody is being bribed for a trailer to move out of this country. And I can tell you hundreds of trailers move out of this country every day. That's why we're subsidizing the whole region, not subsidizing Nigerians in terms of the fuel subsidy issue. But that's another discussion for another day. I'm just trying to explain how corruption affects now capital inflow. It stops it from coming in. Then the one you have, it takes it out. So these are all the impacts of corruption. So this just 5 points I just explained. You find out why it's very difficult for Nigeria to be at its best because of these issues. So second to the last slide, let's not just be talking about the problems Nigeria has done because of some international pressure or some international commitments we have made to the United Nations or to the Financial Action Task Force, where we have these institutions, we have these laws, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Act, which is the ICPC. They are responsible for public sector corruption. All the public servants I've been talking about, they are supposed to ensure that they are not supposed to be corrupt, and if they find out, they are supposed to prosecute it. We have the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They are responsible for mostly financial crimes, white collar crimes, and the new evolving crimes now like cyber crime. All this is, they are supposed to be responsible. Of course, they have a strong component of public sector corruption as well, where they deal with. Of course, advanced fee fraud, this is what popularly called as 419 that we do. This is the act that takes care of it. The Money Laundering Prohibition Act, this has to do with, like I said earlier on, most of the times we take money, we take it out. But even if it's within the country, you find out we invest them in two sectors, usually the financial sector, which is the banks or the BDCs. It may interest you to know that during COVID, where there was near zero economic activity, but dollar was still rising. Why? Because people are taking money and converting them to USD. So Nigeria now, most public servants are saving their money in dollars. That is why the currency had refused to come down. And your exchange rate is supposed to be a function of your economic activity. But only in Nigeria, you find that we're running parallel rates and it's not a function of our economic activity. During COVID, there was near zero economic activity, but dollar refused to come down. Interest rates were not coming down. Why? Because of this corruption we're talking about. The Code of Conduct Act is supposed to ensure, like I told you, one of the components of good governance is asset declaration. So we have a Code of Conduct bureau that is supposed to be checking the assets of public servants. Whether they're doing their work or not is left for the public to decide. Of course, we have the NAITI Act. The NAITI is supposed to check all the resources buried in the ground, our oil, our gas, our everything through. They're supposed to ensure transparency in those sectors because, like I said earlier on, transparency breeds accountability and that translates to good governance. Then the FOI, you and I, we can write to any organization demanding for information. Now, whether that has been well implemented is another talk for another day. Fiscal responsibility is the earlier one I talked about, where governments should not be spending most of their resources on recurrent expenditure. Like in your house now, you know your budget, you know how much you spend on light, how much on energy, how much on petrol, how much on food, but all that is commensurate with your income. You know how much you earn. So there's no way you go and be paying for full bouquet DSTV. When there are only two of you in the house, you barely watch the TV and your salary is probably 60,000 and you go and take 18,000 to pay for full bouquet DSTV. It's just not possible. But that's happening in Nigeria. You see governors moving with 20 cars, fuel, everything. Why? Because they are not borrowing. They are just borrowing to fund consumption. Our budget is supposed to be based on our generation, not our GDP. That's what the economics says. It's supposed to be based on how much you generate, then you know how much you spend. But we would just say this is the size of our GDP, and now target to how much we borrow. And saying, okay, no, we're still okay because this country, their debt to GDP ratio is 80%, so Nigeria has 30%, so it is okay. It is not okay. How much are you generating that you pay those debts? Because now, that's why as at 2 months ago, Nigeria was paying almost 100% of what it generated. It was paying it to debt servicing. So I feel sorry for all these people that want to be president of Nigeria next year. I don't know how they're going to solve that problem. Where all the money you're generating, you're going to be paying it to service debt. It's all corruption that led to this. Of course, we have several laws on penal code in the north, criminal code in the south that deal with aspects of corruption. So, in conclusion, we have to get our economics right because everything is bordered on our standard of living. Healthcare, education, everything you think of is based on the economics. And the way you can get those economics right is your governance has to be right. Now, I already explained what the components of good governance are, and the only way to get there is when you have informed politicians or a political system and citizenry. So not because I know Kule, the Electoral College should be one of the most important institutions in this country for the work they are doing, to really inform citizens about what your political system should be and how from there it should translate to good governance, and from there it should translate to having good economics. So which is the second point? I just said there is a need for improved citizens' engagement in governance through constant demand for advocacy, because once for openness, for transparency. Now, once everything is transparent, it's more likely that things will be better. We're 200 million. You are not going to get through to everybody. We're using Zoom now for this class. So, of course, use technology, social media to mobilize citizens to participate in what I've written as anti-corruption issues, not on governance issues. Because if you address the governance issue, you are addressing the anti-corruption issue. The third point is you have to adopt a collaborative approach where everybody should be involved. Everybody should be involved. Nobody should be left out. Nobody should be marginalized. State actors, non-state actors share information, because the more enlightened people are, because we have a lot of educated people, but they are not enlightened. So the more enlightened people are, the more they are going to be responsive to governance issues. The fourth point I wanted to make is CSOs, of course. I'm here, I'm a CSO, I represent a CSO. The Electoral College, I believe, is a CSO. They should all be involved in all these things, not only to be working against government, it could be cooperative. Sometimes, from my little experience, government agencies don't like confrontation. So sometimes when you cooperate with them, you are likely going to get more results. The last point is already there. It's a recommendation, but it's already there. Establishment of anti-corruption units across all sectors of government. ICPC has that. They have what they call the Act 2, the anti-corruption and transparency units in every MDA, but I don't think it's working very well as it should. Because if it were, that Act 2 unit would have reported all the crimes you have been seeing in the newspapers in the last 10 years or since when ICPC was formed. So, another recommendation, engagement with community-based organizations. Now we're talking about the religious ones, the social groups. Everybody should understand what governance is all about. It's not really anti-corruption. Understand what governance is all about, in the sense that tell them the reason why you don't have a good road here, or the reason why you don't have good hospitals is because the person you elected or selected or has been appointed is, one, not qualified. One, he doesn't have the qualifications. Even if he doesn't, even if he has the complete qualifications, he may not have the competence. Now, even if he has the competence, he may not have the integrity, because integrity is the driver of all these things. You can have competent, qualified people where they don't have integrity, so it becomes a problem. Now, integrity, again, is another class. It's not only you're saying that you don't steal money. That's not the only thing about integrity. Nepotism, it means you don't have integrity if you're nepotistic. If you choose your village people or your people of your religion or people of your tribe or anything, they are all integrity issues. Another one, establishment, anonymous whistleblower program. There was even a program just yesterday about this whistleblowing mechanisms, but because of lack of structure, there are about 5 or 6 agencies all doing whistleblower policy. So there's no coordination. And the last point I would like to make, anti-corruption policy should be enacted across all sectors of public institutions. These policies are there. Is implementation now that is the problem. I think with that, I've done justice. I hope I've done justice to this topic to discuss governance, the components of governance, and what hinders good governance. And anti-corruption, corruption rather, is one of the things that hinders governance. With this, I would like to thank you, and I'll advocate that everybody that has gone through the Electoral College should be an anti-corruption advocate, or preferably a good governance advocate, because this country is ours. We are not going anywhere, and we have to fix it. And everybody has a role to play within your circle. Make sure the right thing is being done. Do the little you can do and leave the rest to God. And God willing, this country shall prosper. Thank you very much, Electoral College. Hello?
Oh, sorry, sir. I was thrown out for a bit there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just finished. And
Oh, okay.
I finished
Okay,
my
my
phone.
network threw me out. I just joined in. Thank you so much, sir. It's been an enlightening session as usual. So now we'll just quickly take questions. If you have any, please can you just indicate with a show of hands, or you could drop it in the chat box. Okay, we already have one from Adams. Adams, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My questions are talking about governance and corruption in the country. So, what are the level of these corruption agencies within the local government and the ward councils? Do they have offices or agencies that operate within that council? Because we believe that the we talk about the grand development start from the ward, even from homes to the ward to the logo. So if the corporate agencies do have basics for open, thank you. Did you get that, sir? Okay, I'll just put it in the chat first.
Hello, Adams. We really cannot hear you. Maybe you could just drop your question in the chat box to make it easier.
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello.
Okay, it's a bit clear now.
Okay, I said I wanted to know, to ask the question. What is the level of
It seems the network is really bad today. Even our facilitator has been thrown out. Adams, please just drop your question. It's still breaking up. Just drop it in the chat box. Adams, we cannot hear you. Just drop your question in the chat box, please.
Yes. Do they have
Latasha, please, you just hold on. Our facilitator is trying to rejoin. So once he joins, I'll take your question.
This is not allowed. Hello, yeah, I'm back.
Okay, welcome, sir. It seems your network is really acting up this evening.
I'm using 3 networks, so it's all part of corruption. It's so sorry, I can take your questions now. So sorry.
Okay, no problem. Adams was asking a question, but he was breaking up. So I'll just take another question in the chat box. Latasha says, is it possible to run a country without corruption? That it said that you can't run a country without a little bit of corruption. Is it truly possible to attain a true level of purity? Let me still unmute her in case she has more to ask. Natasha, you can go ahead, please.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Umar. Thank you for the lecture. So that's my first question. And then secondly, speaking to something you said about countries paying taxes so that they may be able to, so that they can hold the government accountable. And you gave examples of places like the UK. But then there's also places like Dubai, where the indigents, the Emiratis, do not pay taxes. They don't have to hold anybody accountable because the government in itself is responsible. So I don't necessarily feel like just because you pay taxes, that's even, I mean, you're supposed to have the right to ask questions, but paying taxes is not a guarantee that you can even ask questions, I think is my point. I think it should be the government's responsibility to fix those things, whether we ask the questions or not. The government should want to do them, even in the places where it's not your taxpayers' money that is working for you. Those things already don't get done. You also talked about the airports and talked about the loans, Chinese and whatnot. I happen to know that the international airports, the hangar is not big enough to accommodate the airplanes. That is just, as far as I'm concerned, just a shitty, pardon my friend, but just like shitty mismanagement of funds, because you've already built the hangar, you built the airports. You just couldn't be bothered to measure the wingspan of the airplanes so that it can fit. It's just incompetence. I think that alongside corruption, incompetence goes hand in hand with it. But I don't know. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that question. We were talking about trying to make an analogy between the UK, where they pay taxes, and Dubai, where they don't pay taxes. And the governance levels of Dubai seems actually is very high. Well, you have to look at history and context. Dubai, when did Dubai start? And the nature of their citizens, what is the size of Dubai? What is their population? So some of these things are easier to control. And when they started, things were already all in place. You know, they have a very strong criminal justice system in Dubai. If you flout one law, be sure you're going to jail. So I feel those countries in the Emiratis works for them because of the strength of their criminal justice system. You go to jail if you do the wrong thing. So it's a strong combination of good governance. Where you have the rich men do not go to jail in Nigeria. I'm sure you agree with me. So when you don't have a strong criminal justice system, that aspect just fails. Now, while I advocate for the UK, Nigeria has reached the level where our criminal justice system is already weak. But in France, now imagine a situation where our whole budget, we had no resources at all, no oil, nothing, just our brains and the land we have. Well, we have to either use agriculture or innovate or do something. And people know that it's their money that is building the country. I'll tell you, nobody will touch that money. A small example, I served in Abia State some years ago. When we're having with the World Bank office, when we're going to have a project, the rule then was for you to have, let's say, to build a hospital or a road, the whole community must contribute. Now there was a ratio. Nobody could contribute more than 5% of the total sum. Nobody, whether you're a chief or a billionaire. Now, for the fact that everybody was contributing to that project, my sister will tell you, we're even doing crisis management before even the project took off, because there were allegations of money even being stolen when the money had not even been distributed, because everybody felt he had a stake. I've contributed my money, so their eyes were on the money even before the project started. But we had a high rate of project completion because everybody's eye had contributed. The World Bank will only contribute, I think, then it was 70%. The state government will give counterfeit funding of 20%. Now that 10% must be done by the community. Come and see the level of participation. And that's what I feel Nigeria needs now. When everybody is paying, nobody knows his money, nobody will touch that money. This is my view. Dubai works is a criminal justice system. Nigeria criminal justice system is very weak. You would agree. So it's not going to work for now. It takes time to fix. So for now, is to get everybody involved. And this is what I think should be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So Adams was trying to ask a question the other time. Let me just read it out. He dropped it in the chat box. And he said, I want to clarify something. Does the corruption agencies or institutions have offices that operate at the ward council level or local government level? Because development starts from the grassroots level. So what's the operation of those offices at this level? Do they operate there? Did you get a question, sir? Hello, sir.
Yeah, I got the question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the ICPC has offices in every state of the Federation, and the EFCC have in about 18 states, well, 21 states right now. So they have different mechanisms for reporting corruption cases. Some are online, some are physical, but in the long run, it turns out to all be physical. So ICPC has that. They have an online mechanism where you can send an email. The EFCC has an app that you can do that. The code of conduct, no, they don't. So these two institutions all have mechanisms. And let's not forget our grandfather, the police. You're actually supposed to report you can report any corruption case to the police, but for reasons best known to us, that is not working as it should. Thank you.
Okay, awesome, sir. Okay, this question from Amanze Opara, let me just rephrase it. He's asking that in a situation where a party brings out a ticket for either Muslim or Christian, is it part of corruption? Since Nigeria is a secular society, so is it supposed to be, should it be mixed? Or if it's the same, is it a corruption issue?
Well, it depends on how you look at this thing. You see, you're asking the wrong person this question. Honestly, I'm not a believer in religion or tribe to be a prerequisite for selection of our leaders. So I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm looking out for whether you have, like I told you, three things. You have the integrity, you have the capacity, and you have the competence. Once you have these three things, that is what should drive us. And this religion and tribe that I've been doing for the last 40 years of the nation, I've not seen anywhere where it has built one single road or one hospital. So we can decide to drop tribe and religious issues. The earlier we do it, the better for us. And focus on issues that deliver results. What is most painful about these things, when you are flying, you would never check the tribe or religion of the person flying that plane. When you go to a hospital, you have never asked the tribe or religion of that doctor. You just want to get well. But when it comes to politics, our political and religious leaders exploit the ignorance, which is what the Electoral College is trying to bridge now. The ignorance of the populace to be discussing Muslim, Christian, Jewish. None of them is going to bring growth to the country or healthcare. Just for my own view is once somebody has the capacity, competence, and character to do this and select. But yes, we cannot ignore Nigeria we have decided to place religion and tribe above everything else. I don't know who's going to solve that problem. So this is just my response to this.
Okay, thank you for that, sir. So we have two more hands raised. Adams, you still want to ask a question? You can go ahead, Adams.
Hello. Thank you. He said the ICPC has an office in the states, in states. I'm talking about local government level or some kind of subsection of those corruption agency in the local government level or even ward council. Do they have something like that? Because they need to checkmate the activities of the politicians or whoever that is involved in those kind of corruption and crime actions within this level, because the level of crime within this level the grassroots level, in the village, in the town, before you get to the state is in fact is very dubious and very lackadaisical if you check it really. So do they have agencies that check those kind of operations or activities there? That's my question. Do you get it?
Yes, I got it. No, they don't. We have 774 local governments. I don't think it would be feasible for them to have offices in every local government. But if you see, that does not stop you from reporting issues of corruption through the state offices. They have offices in every state. Now, if you can't access that, they have email.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you for the response.
Okay, sir. Let me take another question from the chat box. Okay, so Ijoma is asking that considering how deep corruption goes, how can it be stopped?
Well, ensure the right leaders. And when we talk about the right leaders, we're talking about people with capacity, competence, character, integrity, and in places of public trust. That's just the only way.
Okay, all right. So let me just take one more question from the chat box before we go to the hands raised. CID is asking, how can we fight corruption that is aimed at changing the rules and regulations into rules and regulations that favor the interests of the corruptor? I think it's still similar to the previous one. Did you get the question, Sean?
It's similar, like you said.
Okay.
But just in addition, we have all the laws needed to combat corruption. So we don't have a legal framework issue. We also have the necessary institutions to combat corruption. I said in the third to the last slide, we have what we have a problem with is the implementation. And like the others lady spoke about Dubai, you need to have a strong criminal justice system where corruption cases within 1-2 years, the person has been sentenced. If there are if there's credible information or evidence, rather, that's the word, credible evidence to jail the person. So these are the things one needs. Because all this as you do, if you don't have a strong criminal justice system, is just basically wasting your time. That's why you see cases for 15 years, 20 years, or nothing much has been done.
Okay, awesome, sir. Thank you for that response. So go for Joseph, please. Can you ask your question?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, I was just wondering if the system of government, I mean the federal system of government operated by Nigeria today, have an impact on why people behave the way they do, especially leaders who are in places of public trust. For example, where we have a situation where all the resources are gathered to Abuja, then shared to states. Does that contribute to the level of corruption we are having in the system? Thank you.
Yes, my brother, I will agree with you. Our system of governance, for me, is in fact is the major contributor to our corruption, where everybody pays taxes to the center and they just share in Abuja and there's little or no accountability. It works in some systems, in some countries. So it's not really a bad system where it's not working here. So if you look at most candidates talk about full fiscal federalism, I think that's the position of APC and PDP as well, where each state would only expend what it generates. Now, if you do that, there's likely going to be more accountability. All the people coming to Abuja will now have to move back to the states and pay taxes there, and it is what they generate there that they will use to govern. So I agree with it, even though there are some political intonations to it. These ones are eating the more resources. This one is laying the goods. This one is eating. If you leave all that aside, apply full fiscal federalism, pay 10 to 20%, whatever is agreed upon to the center to manage the territorial integrity and other issues, I feel governance will be better. But this is my view. There are other alternatives, and all alternatives have worked in different countries around the world. The constitution will operate is the same thing, if not the word for word, with the ones in Germany. But look how far Germany have gone and look how backward we are. So permit me to use that word. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please, Olawale Afolabi, you can ask your question.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. It's been a wonderful section. Hope you can hear me.
I can hear you clearly. I mute myself when people are speaking. Yeah,
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Firstly, the issue of corruption in Nigeria. From my experience, many of us are not sincere when discussing the topic. The reason is this. We complain mostly about corruption when we are not benefiting from it. When the tables turned, our perspectives change. Beyond just fighting corruption, I think we need strong institutions. If Dubai will have a strong criminal justice, it's because they have strong institutions. Everywhere in the world, the executive will have a small influence on this institution. But in Nigeria, their influence is too much. We have strong institutions where those institutions can actually stand for themselves. How can we make these institutions stronger, better? If we're expecting anybody to fight corruption, any single person to fight corruption in Nigeria, we're only wasting our time. Because they will have all the ideas before getting to power. After they get to power, they forget everything. Thank you. That's my submission.
Yeah, you're right. I like your suggestion, but if you go back to, I think, the third slide, even people of the criminal justice sector are appointed. Now, who appoints them? It might be the governor, it might be the president, it might be anybody. Now, if you make a wrong selection when electing the president or the governor, it boils down. That's why, if you remember, I told you the first thing, we must get our elections right. If you get the president wrong, for example, that will not choose competent people and will decide to choose people from his village or religion, the problem starts from there and it continues. That is where the problem, but when you get competent people, I wish we had time to explain the Chinese model when I'm discussing competence. You understand? There is not anybody, I can tell you 80% of the politicians you know today cannot even be councillors in China because of the rigorous selection process to select leaders there. They cannot. Yes, in the US they may be because it's our unpopularity, but where in models where they look at competence, history, what you have done, your integrity, your records, this is a country that killed people for corruption, for God's sake. So there are different things we have to look at before but thanks for your comment.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I think we have just one more question. Faith, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you, our guest lecturer, for bringing the beautiful perspective and insightful one to this issue. In fact, most of my thoughts has already been shared, but we've had so many legislations, we have so many laws. Recently, we've seen about the Proceeds of Crime Bill, which was before the National Assembly, how most of those laws have been, played around through different levels. But again, the question still boils down to, commitment from duty bearers on how most of these laws could be carried out. And again, most citizens are not even aware of these laws. And I think the duty also falls on the part of the citizen. For instance, we have about so many persons here in the electoral college. How do we start? What are those entry points that we could start on our own to ensure that the issue of corruption is being, the message of corruption is being preached, the issue of corruption is being stamped out? Because almost everybody, whenever you mention the issue of corruption, everybody says, oh, you're corrupt, everyone is corrupt in one way or the other. But I think I haven't been, experienced in the field, just like you said, you just mentioned something about the Chinese model. What are those easy steps that as individuals we could use to ensure that this message of corruption, the anti-corruption fight is being strengthened and deepened as individuals? Thank you very much. And again, I love the work. I just went through your organization. I love the work you're doing. And we also love to volunteer to see how we could work together from the side of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that comment. You can send us an email to the organization. We actually like people to join us in our work. Yeah, like I said earlier on, we have all the legal framework and the institutions. What we need is more citizens' engagement. As citizens' engagement, we're not talking about CSOs that will now go, for example, blow whistle or talk about this, and the moment they go, they're giving money and they keep quiet. Them to they have gotten their own share, because that's what some citizens actually do. They actually just want a share of the cake, not to stop what is going on. So what Electoral College is doing is very apt, enlightening people about what needs to be done. And that's what they're doing. So once we get our election or selection process right, it's going to take time. It might take the next 5-10 years, but I can see changes where people now are looking for competent people. So slowly the issue of religion and tribe will slow down, will win out with time, and we'll start getting the right people to do the right things. Thank you.
Okay, I can see Gofob's hand again up. Please go ahead and ask a question.
Thank you. So I want you to respond to this. I've listened to so many people who analyze the situation of Nigeria on corruption, and most people are of the opinion that in a situation where you have people who have benefited from corruption, having a large chunk of the resources, the riches of the country. In fact, it was rated as high as 1% of Nigerians, 1% of Nigerians have 85% of the wealth of the country. How do you then fight these people when these resources are already in their hands? Thank you.
Well, I had to take a deep breath when I was thinking about that question. You see, the truth is, these people you're talking about have weaponized two things. They have weaponized our ignorance, and they have weaponized religion. Sorry, they have weaponized our ignorance, and they have weaponized our poverty. These are the two things that are used to our disadvantage. Now, it's very difficult to meet a poor man that is looking for money to pay for school fees. You give him, like in the last primary elections, people were spending up to $10,000 on delegates. This is somebody that's probably never seen 200,000 naira in his life. Now that is 6 million. It's actually difficult for him to reject that money. And they put mechanisms to ensure that after they have collected the money, that they vote for them. So I agree with you. So we weaponize, now that's on poverty. Now on ignorance, like what Electoral College is trying to do now, to tell you that that money is just going to last 2 months and that's it. But people are so ignorant, and it's from the ignorance that goes down to tribe and religion. You see people actually believing, yes, let this power stay in the north. No, let the power go to the south. No, let it go to Muslims. No, let it go to Christians. No discussions about what the components of governance are being discussed. And if you want to be ignorant, now ignorance is very difficult problem to solve. Very difficult. So it's continuous. That's why I don't like to use the word educated. I prefer the word enlightenment, because you see a lot of ignorant educated people. They are educated, but they're ignorant if they are thinking in the line of tribe, religion, and all these things. So, but when they're enlightened to see that those factors do not translate to results, they will do the right thing. So it's a continuous thing. A continuous thing, how we destroy the ignorance issue and the poverty issue. So these are just the issues. What goes down at the right level, sometimes don't blame the poor people. It's easy to blame, but when you have never seen 100,000 in your life and you see 1 million, it's difficult. I'm not justifying it, but I'm just explaining what it is. It's difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. I'll just take 2 more questions in the chat box, and then we'll call it an evening. So CID is still asking that what can we do to put an end to political corruption of jumping from one party to the other if the party doesn't favor them?
Well, I think INEC has done something in that regard, where in the Electoral Act 2002, between, I think it's either 3 to 6 months, you are not allowed to change parties or something like that. I'm not sure, but INEC as an institution has tried to checkmate that way people do not jump parties. That's for that.
Oh, okay. I think that's actually the last question in the chat box. The others are just comments. So someone is saying the best method to treat the corrupt practice is the Chinese model. Do you agree, sir?
Of course I do. Everybody will agree with that easily. But,
okay.
But to have that legislation, who are those going to make the legislation? You understand, to make, let's say, corruption, let's say death penalty for capital punishment for corruption. Who are you going to elect to go and make those? So it's easier said than done. Yeah.
All right, so I think Faith is asking if we could get a material on the Chinese model.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Do you have access to that, sir?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, okay, awesome.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
You can send it to students.
All right, sir, that would be much appreciated. I'm sure they'll also want your social media handles, so we'll probably just get that across to them.
Okay, let me write it. Everything of mine is at Umaria. This is my Twitter. So that's just what it is. My Twitter handle. Then.
All right. Thank you once again, sir. Come to the end of this evening's session. It's been very enlightening, very educative. It's been eye-opening. Thank you so much, sir, for taking time out, even on your birthday, to impart knowledge to us this evening. We at the Electoral College, we truly appreciate you. Thank you for always giving us a positive response whenever we call. It's always a pleasure having you.
All right, thank you.
So I'll just allow the students on mute so they could just tell you thank you before we end the class.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you and happy birthday.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
No,
Happy
thank
birthday
you.
to you. Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you, sir. Happy
Thank you, sir. Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, on behalf of the Electoral College, thank you once again, Mr. Umar. It's always a privilege having you with us. So thank you everyone for attending. Thanks to the students who showed up. I believe that we've learned a lot this evening. So tomorrow classes continue. Make sure you come early, come ready to learn. All right, so this is where we call it an evening. Enjoy the weekend, everyone. Thank God it's Friday, and have a good night.